How are
Awesome.
you?
A little burnt, a little tired, but
Yeah.
get in there. We're getting there. Florida's tested us in some ways we didn't expect, but yeah, get in there. We're about 300 miles to the end, so
Okay.
about 10 days, give or take, if we do another Nero day. So yeah, it's kind of wrapping up here.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. I can see that you already lost a bit of weight there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. 30 mile days will do that to you. We've been able to get up into that pace region we were talking about last time,
Yeah.
that we were kind of fluctuating a little bit with it when we got into Heathrow, because I don't think we've talked in, yeah, close to 500 miles,
Yeah.
maybe a little less.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were fluctuating with those paces of like low 30s, but now we're stepping out mid 30s, low 30s, and we got our first 40-mile day in the other day, which
Okay.
is good.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah,
a
and
day wading through rivers.
wading is too light of a term. It was
Okay.
swimming through rivers.
Oh,
Wow.
um, I I've been having problems, so I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of footage, and we just haven't been stopping, so we haven't really had time to upload the footage to YouTube. But I have a lot of good clips. So we got into St. Mark's this morning, and hopefully I'll be able to upload one, but that's still only getting us to Heathrow. All the good stuff afterwards is gonna it's gonna take a while. A lot of these towns, if you do stop, like we've stopped in one town, White Springs, since we've talked to you last from Heathrow, and it's a little B&B, and their Wi-Fi just kicks you off, and
Hmm.
yeah.
so you can't really upload anything. But following that tangent, it's yeah, swimming rivers. So the Swanee was at 66 feet, which the FTA has different tiers. So if it's at 58 feet, you're like getting right to the level of it's going to start to flood. And 62, 63 feet, the FTA says, hey guys, maybe look for some bypassing routes around here. 65 and up, they said, don't even try to hike the trail. There's no trail. It's just Swanee River. So we still tried to hike the trail, and we literally were swimming the river. And every time you swam across it, you would have to go into a bushwhack where these razor palms were just slicing your legs up, and then you would have to go, as soon as you were done, back down into it and then swim the river again. So we were just laughing maniacally because it was so ridiculous. I mean, it was nuts.
Oh, so you're more doing a swim through than a walk or a hike through.
With Florida at this point, yes, because Florida, it feels like it's the land of extreme. So when you're on trail, the trail is actually just swamp or river. At least this year, because again, I don't know what it is with our luck. We touched on this in our last
Yeah,
stuff,
I couldn't
but
get
every
worse.
local, no, it's not good. Every local we've talked to, we're like, so we were sitting at this stone bench on the Swanee, and we're just kind of beat down, and we're like, our souls are kind of like, this is kind of, it's frustrating. So we're kind of beat down, and we're beating ourselves down because we ended up having to take an alternate road walk around the section because it was starting to get, you were getting sucked into the like legit river, not just the overflow. So we're sitting there kind of beating ourselves down a little bit, and this 80-year-old guy comes up to us, and he walks a few miles around that section every day for years. So I'm curious, I'm like, is the river usually like this? He's like, no, it's half the size usually. So our luck is just, I don't know what it is, it's just always wet. And I'll say this on camera. I'm blaming Magpie a little bit, because ever since I met her, the rain magnet is leaking off to me, and now just there's moisture everywhere. It's in the sky, it's on the ground. It's too much. So blaming Magpie a little bit. You gotta put the blame out somewhere else. But yeah, it's been super bad luck.
Yeah. Oh.
Are
Yeah.
you able to keep stuff dry or dry it easily?
To a degree, Hardy would say no. So my headlamp stopped working because I took one too many dips with it. Patrick the Rock's doing fine. My rock hasn't gotten, I mean, it's gotten wet, but it dries out pretty well. So I carry this little rock. So he's doing fine. Sleeping bag, I have that in a dry bag, so that's not a big issue. For the most part, it stays dry. Tent, we'll try to have a drying out party once a day. So the rain hasn't been too terrible. As you can see, it's going to rain today, but most of the moisture has been coming like on the ground.
Okay.
Like stepping through swamp. So drying out, you can dry it out pretty quick in the sun, and if it does get wet, it's not a huge issue. So we've had a couple mornings. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff. We've done 450 miles, close to 5 since we talked to you, but there were a couple mornings that, and I got clips of these as well. Like we're sitting in our tent, it's like 4:30 a.m. and you just breathe, and it literally seems like a smoke machine was in your tent, like just the moisture in the air. So
Wow.
yeah, it's the land of moisture around Florida, around Florida.
Oh gosh. How are your feet holding up though? Because if they're constantly wet and you're walking and swimming and
My feet are just bricks of callus. Honestly, at this point, they don't notice a lot of difference throughout the day. Like even when they're soaking wet, you might feel the sock bunch up and then you just kind of walk it out. So my feet are holding up pretty good. What I weirdly got these last 2 days was a little bit of chafe from the pack, like on the kind of armpit section.
yeah.
And I usually don't get that. I was joking with Hardy because he got it 2 weeks ago, like way back when. And he got armpit chafe for some reason. So I was joking with him. I'm like, maybe my body's just so empathetic that I'm like, oh, you went through that pain? I got to go through that pain too. But it's not right. So that's been the most kind of body pains you deal with. And as we're reaching deeper into these miles, as we were talking on, your body starts to get used to it. So like now that we're reaching into these 35s, 36, 37, 40, what it may be, you get to camp and you still feel like you have energy left. Like instead of getting to camp and being like, I got to throw all my stuff down, my feet are killing me, or I got to throw all my stuff down, I'm just exhausted. Your body starts to acclimate quickly. So we can eat into these miles again, and it just feels like a day of hiking at this point.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that. There was a tractor going by.
Oh, we don't hear anything, so all good.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. I had a question, but skip my mind.
You wanna hear another good river story?
Of course,
Yeah,
always.
sure.
So the Suwannee was our big one that like we swam, and it was like super flooded. So the Akula River, which we did yesterday, is another river segment that is also flooded because why not? I mean, it has to be at this point. So yesterday we get into this segment and we had a couple small swims. And when I say swims, like might have been 50 yards across. Like you come down into a dip, you wade up to your hips, and then you kind of have to launch and swim the rest of the way across the section. And we're just laughing, joking, because not nearly as bad as the Suwannee. And we keep going, and I don't know what made me film, but I just started filming this clip of a river, and I'm seeing something move in the water. I'm like, okay, it might be a gator or something like that. It was actually a dog that was stuck in the middle of the river, like flowing in this super flooded river. So Hardy and I take off running along the trail to try to get upriver of him, to try to get him to the bank with us. And he's kind of not knowing what to do. He paddles to the other bank and then gets sucked back into the middle of the river. So finally the river kind of bows around, and we're able to get in front of him enough that we throw our gear down and run down the bank and hold on to the bank and kind of corral him towards us. And we get him out of the river, and he didn't even thank us. He just looked at us and then ran away.
Yep.
So that was interesting.
Maybe he was just having a joyride.
That would be quite the joyride. This river was, so the Akula as well is really dangerous. I'm mispronouncing it, of course, but the river from where we were in 2 miles, it goes underground. So the Akula has this huge funnel. All of a sudden, it just hits a landmass and just goes straight underground. So if he didn't get out of there, he would have not had a good time. I mean,
No.
that's one interesting joyride if he was out there on that joyride. But it makes you wonder. Like he wasn't fazed by it at all. He kind of looked at us and was like, "All right, yeah," and then just ran off into the brush.
Interesting, yeah.
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 You mentioned gators as well. Are there a lot of alligators in that area? Well, Florida is known for gators, but
It's Gators City, or Gator Ocean or Gator Swamp. There's gators everywhere.
Yeah.
There's gators everywhere. Makes you not want to night hike as much through the swamps. So there was this one. It was the day. It was our 140-mile day. And this day was like 30 of those miles was literally knee-high water travel. And for some reason, I think I tried to describe this on either a post or something like that. For some reason, when the trail miles become tougher, it pushes you to kind of reach deeper and try to go farther, go faster, whatever it may be. So we're like, okay, we're going to step it out. We're going to see how far we can get. And we had about 4 miles left on the day, and it was starting to get nighttime, but there's nowhere to camp within this swamp section. Like everything's flooded. So we had to get to this camp spot. And with those last 4 miles are in the dark, and you're kind of popping into knee-high water, but little pockets, so it's nothing big. And like 0.5 or 0.6 before the camp, it's like swamp where you can't see, like it's just swamp everywhere. You're like, where am I? So you're wading in this swamp. It's pitch black. It's still like you feel like stuff's around you. But the funny part is like we get out of these swamps and we pop up onto this little dry patch of ground, and this dry patch was where people could drive into if they're doing day hikes, wherever. And there was a car there with kayaks on the top. So we're laughing to ourselves because somebody here must have like during the day looked out there and was like, oh, I'm going to go kayak that swamp, the ones we just walked through. So we set up a little bit from the cars, and we're just dying laughing at how ridiculous it was of a day it was. And the car, we didn't know anybody was in it, turns their car on and leaves. And then it makes us laugh more because it's like, well, what would you do in that situation? You see people pop out of a swamp that you had just kayaked during the day, just dying laughing. They're just like, can't stop and control themselves. And like, they're just maniacally laughing the entire time. Like I would leave too at that point. It's pitch black.
yeah, that must have been scary for them as well. All of a sudden, see two figures coming out of the swamp. Like, oh, yeah.
I mean, we were trying to put our minds into the situation of them. It's like they got there during the day. It was nice. They saw an endless swamp that they paddled on, and then it's pitch black and two people come out of it. It's like, yeah, time to go.
Yeah. Especially if you've seen enough thriller movies, then probably. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
perfect.
not too far anymore till the end of the trail. Is it gonna stay the same, or do you think the river wading or swimming and everything will change a little bit towards the end?
So at least in the next 200 miles, I guarantee we're going to be doing knee-high stepping through swamp.
Okay.
I don't know with the Swanee and the Kula behind us that we're going to actually have to do full length swims. Like, that's not normal that you have to do that, as well as if it usually is flooded. Yeah, those swims aren't normal at all, but I don't think we have those. If we do have river miles that we follow, at least it's not as giant as bodies of water. Like we followed the St. Mark's River for a little bit this morning, and it's a tidal river, but we were walking through ankle to shin deep. It's not anything on that level, because also the way the trail routes you in the Sewanee and the Akula is literally the river's here and the trail's like right here.
Oh, yeah.
So like sometimes even on a time that it's not flooded, the river's right next to you. So when it's flooded, you're in it. So I don't foresee that happening. We got about 350 miles left. And from what we've heard, we had a buddy that we ran into that was going southbound, and we had known each other from previous trails. He's like, you got a lot of road walks. You got swamp travel. Of course, Florida, it's going to throw something fun in there for us, but nothing. I can't perceive it being as rough as the Sewanee section. So I'll probably be proven wrong, but I don't perceive that.
No.
Yeah.
As long as you're keep having fun, that's the main thing.
Yeah, and it is fun. I mean, any trail's fun. Like I said, it's not our specific preference of hiking. This out east type hike. Well, definitely swamp hiking, but it's different. You don't do it on every trail. And after the Florida Trail, I don't see us doing this type of hiking for a long time. Most of our preference is going to be going out west, that type of hike. Well, after the rest of this year, but most of our preference is going to start pulling us out west, and hopefully 1 year, 2 years, we'll see when we can travel overseas, hiking overseas again. So yeah, you got to enjoy the experience while you can. And the communities you pass through, I mean, we were talking to the owners of this, it's kind of called Fish Camp today, and they were showing us pictures of the hurricane that passed through this area 2 years ago. And there's a building that's about 40 feet high, like kind of a marina right on the water. And they showed us a picture of the roof, and the water level was right here. So you see things that you don't see in any other state. So Florida has its magic. That magic sometimes is going to be in the form of swamps.
Yeah.
In general, how's the community around the Florida Trail?
So I wish I could talk more on that. The community of the locals is super great. The community of other hikers, we haven't run into much. We're getting really close to that tail end of the no-bow bubble. So we're about within a 4 or 5 day stretch of hitting the group of hikers in front of us. So the trail community in that sense don't really have too much of a feel on the pulse there. We did run into some people in White Springs. One guy that was resting up an ankle, and then one guy who was kind of doing a work for stay for a while. So we've gotten spatterings of hikers, but honestly, from what we've seen, I don't know. I don't think we can make a judgment call or opinion based on what we've seen. Too few hikers. There are a lot in front of us, but we started late, and we want to catch within there. And I think we will catch up at the very tail end, but still not enough time to make an opinion on that. As for locals, kind of like any other trail, a lot of the locals do love the hikers coming through. It's still growing, so there's still moments that they're still kind of questioning, more inquisitive of what's going on, like what you're actually doing. So this morning, last night, I had to do 2 or 3 calls. Last night, I had to call the wildlife refuge to get a permit for camping in St. Mark's. So super friendly, awesome people. You tell them you're a Florida Trail hiker. It's like $1 per night, and we were only staying in it last night. But for some reason, they keep wanting you to walk to their ranger's office, which is 2 miles off trail when you're trying to get into town to eat breakfast. So he's like, well, call the ranger tomorrow morning when you're closer, see how it goes. So this morning I called, and it was a different ranger, and they kept thinking I was lost. They kept thinking I didn't know where I was. They kept trying to explain to me, well, if you go this way, you can get to our ranger's office. Or if you go this way, you can get to our ranger's office. I'm like, I understand where I am. I just want to be able to pay over the phone, please. So a lot of the services are still learning the thru-hiker mentality and learning what hikers are exactly looking for along the way. So it's still a growing trail system, but you can tell a lot of the communities are open. Even in White Springs at the B&B we stayed at, Judith is her name, who owns it. And it's like, in the hiking community, like throughout the hikers that talk about it, it's the spot to stay. But she doesn't really know about the hiking community, even though all these hikers stay there. She still doesn't recognize you as hikers. She kind of recognizes you as just people that wandered in. So it's still growing in awareness.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that Florida Trail was still that young in that sense.
So it was founded a while ago. It's just, I think not a lot of people, I'm using young in the term of not a lot of people have done it or traveled it. It's a national scenic trail, so it does get people that want to travel it for that reason. But a lot of the time, even as a beginner hiker, mid-level hiker, an experienced hiker, there's so many trails that it's not going to exactly draw your attention unless you're specifically wanting to do this trail. So like the AT and the PCT will generically draw people in because it sounds like an epic journey, huge hiking community, all of this good stuff, great mountains. But the Florida Trail, like even when we were on the AT back in 16, we told ourselves we were never going to do the Florida Trail. Like we heard people tell stories about it, and we're like, no, there's just no way, we'll never do it. So I think as more and more people and the hiking community grows, it just, as any trail grows, people have done that trail, so they're gonna come out and do this trail now. So I would say young in the sense of getting a big hiking community around it, because it's been here, but it's taken a while for the community to start doing it because it might be low on people's lists.
True. Well, you have to enjoy a bit of swimming and swamping to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I went off on a thought tangent when I was trying to explain this. It's the world of extremes. Like Florida Trail is, you're stepping in swamp or you're doing road miles. So like, it's not super glamorous per se. Like you're literally walking a lot of road on the Florida Trail, and they're trying their best to put you off of it. But when they put you off of it, they put you in a swamp. So you want to walk the road again. So it's like a love-hate relationship there. And even in the Akula, there's a section. So right after coming northbound, you hug the Akula for maybe 9 miles, and then you get to this place called Goose Parking Trailhead or something. Then you do this 3-mile loop back to another trailhead that you don't really see the Akula anymore. But this 3-mile loop is so overgrown and so brushy that we picked off, it sounds like an exaggeration, but we picked off 80 ticks a piece from us in that section. Like it is, and I'm as much of a purist as anybody. I mean, we did 15 plus miles to get around the Seminole Reservation just to connect footsteps and to make our miles link up. But I've left comments on the maps like, don't do this section. Like your miles will link up. Like if you walk from Goose out to a road, you're gonna have to walk that road the rest of the way for the rest of the Florida Trail. That's where it connects. Like that 3 miles with the amount of ticks and the amount of brush and no views, like I don't know why they routed it that way. It very much frustrated both of us. Like I can deal with a lot on trail, swamps, rivers, swims, whatever it is, but the fact that there's so many ticks in a section that seems unnecessary really kind of got under the skin. Well, got under the skin per se.
Literally.
Yeah.
Wow. This is disgusting.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too much issues anymore this time around with ants.
No. Oh man, that's in the next video that we need to upload, and we're committed to do it this time. I mean, we have to, but the ants, no issues with ants. We're doing no cook. Hardy and I again are joking that this entire trail is we're just eating prison sandwiches because it's meat on bread. Like from these corner stores, it's just meat on bread, and that's what we're doing for dinners. So yeah, not cooking with, and not gonna even get into the ballpark of trying to get ants in the tent again.
Yeah.
With the ticks, that's enough. With the mosquitoes, that's enough. With wildlife, this past section saw a bobcat, good amount of rattlers, and I got this really good clip that makes you laugh a little bit because you were on top of this trail and there's a swamp like right here. So they actually put you on trail for a little bit. But I walk across this path and a huge rattler is just laying across the path. And I try to walk around it. And as I'm trying to walk around it, it starts slithering into the swamp. And I'm like, oh, that makes me really want to start walking those swamps again. So yeah, Florida has a lot of wildlife. How that wildlife will interact with you, it's kind of up to you, but it's not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, perfect. And how is all your gear holding up?
Shoes, I wish I could. They're on the porch. I wish I could show you. It's more of a flip flop right now than a shoe.
Okay.
Actually, Hardy's throwing me the shoe. Yeah. So the shoes, they're more flip flops than shoes right now, with the holes on each side. It's just they're Florida shoes at this point. yeah, just giant holes on each side. So we got shoes in 100 miles at Bristol. So shoes are the ones that are going down. The rest of the gear, pack is holding up. Sleeping bag is holding up. I've never had problems with the sleeping bag pretty much. Tent is, actually, I could go into a rant about a tent.
Tell us more.
Okay, so I love Big Agnes. Big Agnes has been our go-to company for tents, all of our hikes.
Yeah.
But there's a fine line between ultralight and a piece of paper. And at this point, so when we first got the tent, we could kind of see that their floor was a little too see-through for our liking.
Yeah.
That meant it was super, super thin. And with their copper spur UL2, which is what we're using, you put it on grass and it puts holes in the bottom of the tent. Like the amount of duct tape in the bottom of our tent now, it's not like we're picking bad camp spots. Like we're picking a lot of grass or very good camp spots. It's literally, this material is so thin that anything that hits it punctures it. So they went too light on their ultralight tent. So I'm gonna just power through it on the Potomac and the New England Trail. And then when Magpie and I have been in communication about, I kind of given her the go-to she's more of a tent gearhead than I am. So I kind of told her, hey, if you have a preference on a tent, I love Big Agnes, but this is kind of what's making me move away from them, because you can go to ultralight with gear, and they hit that threshold because it's like paper. I mean, there's so many holes that I just have duct tape everywhere.
I had
the purpose.
Yeah, correct. I had the discussion with one of the tent makers, and the thing is that they kind of have to do it because people are too much looking at weight. And if they make a ground sheeting that's thick enough, they become too heavy. So that's why all of them sell these footprints separately.
Yes.
So that's where they get you the protection. So yeah, just tent on its own generally isn't sufficient. You need to get the footprint, but then at least if you look at the tent weight, it's low. So yeah.
But that comes into the camp of, is it ultralight if you're having to carry two pieces of gear? Like, I get that they want you to carry that footprint because it is great protection, but at that point, why wouldn't I just go with a tent that has a thicker floor? I mean, I'm gonna have to be carrying that weight and that extra piece of gear anyway. And that's what Hardy and I were arguing about a little bit. Is I completely understand that they're making it because people are just like, I want lighter. But if you're having to carry that extra piece of gear, I know it's still going to be a little lighter, but it's more to carry, and it takes up more pack room, and it's frustrating to say the least. So if Magpie doesn't have a big preference on a different company's tent, like talking about weight, I'm more comfortable carrying that extra pound. Like I'll carry an extra pound in a tent, and it's not going to even be that much, just to make sure the bottom floor is actually like durable material. And they have a copper spur that's not ultralight, and I'm hoping that's the issue, not the issue, but that's the solution here, that their floor is actually thicker. So yeah, I almost skimmed over that, but yeah, the tent has not made me super happy.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder if oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It makes me wonder if I'm forgetting other gear that's making me frustrated, but I don't think so. No, it was the tent. Besides that, gears kind of just has the regular gear life. Like shoes, they're bound to go eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I do have a tangent on ultras, but that could be a deep tangent that I could go on for a while. I don't know if you want me to. I could touch on it very briefly.
Yeah, sure.
So I do want to move away from ultras, because this comes into a lot of thought with. This comes into the philosophy of a lot of different companies, like Big Agnes, like all these other companies. Is we have to keep making the newer and best model, newer and best. And it's gotten to the point with the ultras that they come out with these changes every half a year, it seems like. And just as your foot starts to get used to a shoe, it's gone. Like you might be able to find it on eBay or you might be able to find it somewhere else, but it's gone. So like, I'm tired of playing this kind of Russian roulette with ultra, at least, with changing these models out and getting the feet reused to them. So after this year, I didn't want to change it this year that all these miles are being demanded and I know that I can do it. But after this year, I want to start moving away from them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you will run into that issue with a lot of brands anyways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully eventually 11 Skies will be able to change the game. It might take a while because we're still a small company. We're still growing. We're not really branching out to it into a whole bunch of gear, but it tires me, the changes all the time. So I know there's other people, and I know 90% of people might like the changes, might enjoy that stuff, but for the people that kind of get stubborn and get set in their ways, that's us, and that's what we do. So eventually maybe we'll be able to solve that problem. We'll see.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Like if you found gear that works for you and you know you can make the through hike with it, and all of a sudden you have to start again with finding the shoes, finding the tent, finding everything. That's just too complicated.
I mean that complication is not a big issue when you have a lot of time on a through hike. So say you're doing, because there's so many people, and we did this for our first 2 hikes, AT and PCT. Like we sat back into a pace, like just really just enjoy the time out there. So we had a lot of time in camp. We had a lot of time at break spots to kind of like think and plan around what gear we want to try out, what we want to play with. And you would do 25-mile days and you would play with that. You would play with what gear you wanted to play with. But at least for people that are trying to move quickly or have a lot planned in 1 year and all of this stuff, there's not a whole bunch of that time. By the time you get to town, you got your town chores. Depending how many miles you do in, you got laundry, you got food, and then you're snoozing because you got to wake up tomorrow and go hit those miles again. So yeah, I mean, it might not hit the giant majority because there are people that will always want to change and want to plan with that. But for the people that don't have that time, yeah, it's hard to not delegate. It's hard to balance that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Is the glare coming too much? I think I see some sun on my side.
Oh no, not too bad yet.
Still good. It's cool. Good to see some sun.
Yeah. Florida likes to play games with you a little bit. I mean, the clouds this morning were just pitch black, and then it's like, oh yeah, we'll give you some sunshine, even though we said it's going to rain.
Yeah. Well, it's good for drying out some gear.
Yeah. We got our dry out party on. We're too lazy to walk to the laundromat. And I keep joking with Hardy, telling him, hey, 11 Sky shorts also don't have to be washed for an entire through hike. I have washed them once, though.
Okay.
Maybe twice. But yeah, I keep joking with him, like, gear doesn't need to be washed. Socks are what need to be washed. But yeah, so we did some sink laundry and we're just drying out everything right now with the sun, too.
Perfect.
That's good.
Yeah. And how is it going with the hike and with 11 Skies? Is that balance okay?
No, it's still taking a while. It's still, I would say the balance is okay, but it's not optimally what we want. So tying into articles, video publications, all this stuff, with the pace we're going, it's hard to push that content out because I think 11 Skies wanted to be able to push out an article a week, and on trail, we're doing updates, but we're not doing like a full length article as much as we want to. So that balance is hard. When we're on the road walks on the Florida Trail, we're able to return emails, we're able to do business calls, and we're able to talk to clients. So that part's easy. But with the content production, that is still a tier we're trying to find a balance of. Like coming into town, as soon as we get off this, my phone is just going to be writing and uploading I'm not going to have access to my phone. It's just going to be doing what it needs to do for the pretty much rest of town. So with 11 Skies, it's still trying to find that balance of miles and work. So
Yeah.
what I've found is while walking the Florida Trail, the roads give you the opportunity to, like I said, write out posts and updates there, return emails. I've had a lot of phone calls while walking the roads with clients, manufacturers, producers, and all of that type of stuff. So that's been really good. And I've been able to consolidate the time there. But kind of just the content production of articles, pushing out videos, that's kind of, I haven't found the perfect balance with that yet. So the main part of 11 Skies is running well, but the stuff that I'm really excited about that kind of shows the behind the scenes, not super there yet. But
Yeah.
the balance is still coming. Like, it's every day it gets a little easier. I could always get into camp and use some of that time to do that, but by the time you eat, you hit the snooze button. So it's
Yeah.
it's structuring, getting better at that, and it's still taking a little bit, but it's better than, I don't know if I had any preconceptions with it. I was gonna say it's better than I thought, but I don't know if I really had any preconceptions. It's just changing day by day, and as grown on the trail, that these miles are becoming easier, you have more time and more energy to make sure everything else keeps rising. So as a Florida Trail metaphor, all boats rise.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So 10 more days about? Is it around
Yes, today's,
50?
oh yeah, happy March 1st, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today's March 1st. We're shooting for March 12th or 13th. So
Yeah.
maybe 11 days. It would be nice to do it in 10, but I think it might be more than 300 miles. I think it might be like 330 or 340. So it might be 11 more days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's gonna pull into account another Nero day when we get our shoes. So like we're doing, it's all about the average. Like you can be doing 35s, 36, 34s, 33s, whatever it is. But if you have a day that's 10 miles,
Yeah.
that automatically brings them all down. And that's what has been hurting us. Like we did 16 miles into here today, and without this day, you take all our past 6 or 7 days and you would be averaging, I think it was like 31 or 32. But then you take this day, brings it down to like a 29 or 28 maybe. So
Yeah.
it's the first trail of the year. We got time, and we're doing the miles comfortably that we want to do. So yeah, it's all working out well.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, I think we'll be catching up then at the end of the trail, most likely.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll probably touch the terminus and then get into Pensacola, and then Hardy's gonna go back to real life, and I'm gonna go try to step out some more miles. So yeah, we'll have we'll try to set up something for once we get to Pensacola.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on to the Northeast, and hopefully that winter vortex is gone.
Yes.
I can't deal with more humidity in the form of snow. Just stop. It doesn't need to happen.
No. Just some dry trail for a while, hopefully after this.
Just a little bit. That's all I'm asking for. Just like maybe one day, maybe a few hours, just a little bit.
Oh, definitely. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for the catch up. It was amazing to hear the stories again, and yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you after the Florida Trail and hear all about the last 350 miles.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap the head around that it's just the first trail of the year, but it's but then you wrap the head around, I don't have more swamps in my future, and that is what is getting us to the end and pushing us further. So we're excited.
Yeah. You definitely chose a very challenging trail, I think, for the first one of the year.
Oh, you check it off. You get it off of the bucket list. Knowing what I know now about the Florida Trail, I'm super happy it's not a trail that's smack dab in the middle of our planning year. It would be a big bummer to transition from like smooth hiking to swamp and then back to. I'm glad it's out of I'm glad we're getting it out of the way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, enjoy the rest of your day off trail.
You guys too.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Will do.
Will do.
And well, we'll chat soon.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right.
See
Bye.
ya. Bye bye.